a little bit after 1. I'm just back from my late morning um, walk and run, combination of the two. A little hot out. It's in the 90s, very humid, um, misty. The dog she struggled a bit. We don't take her out for long when it's this hot, but we do like to get a little bit of distance with her, make sure she gets some exercise, especially being a husky. This is pretty hot weather for her. Um, I do a sunrise walk by myself, sometimes depending on the time of year, right before sunrise. And although I do try to set a brisk pace, get some exercise as well, this is my time to get out in nature first thing in the morning to get that direct sunlight to the eyes. As I explained in a couple, I'm actually always throwing it out there, mentioning it, the importance of getting that first light to the eyes, um, that it produces ephedrine and cortisol, um, gets the body um, moving up. And later on, those very same hormones are converted into serotonin and melatonin and helps us sleep later on in the. So what we do first thing in the morning actually prepares us for bed later on. How you start the day is how you're going to end the day. If you start the day getting that first light, getting the blood flowing, you give your metabolism a boost. You're burning calories right from the start of the day. Not to mention that positive um, hormonal balance that you're creating in your system. And then, of course, meditation. Uh, Meditation is going to have a direct impact on every aspect of your health. Um, Meditation is not your thing. You can do some kind of active prayer. You can do qigong, something to touch base with spirit. Of course, when I say spirit, I don't mean um, some far off concept that we have of what spirituality is, but something that puts us in right in the focus, right in the thick of it, um, of life, beingness, of listening. Subtle difference between prayer and meditation. It's often said that prayer is talking to God, meditation is listening to God. Herman de Melville said in Moby Dick, silence is the only voice of God. And that is the art of meditation. It was Franz Kafka. He said, you don't have to do anything, just sit there. Might have been the Tennyson who used his own name as a mantra. Um, it's not difficult. Get out of bed and do it. Um, Wayne Dyer used to say, put one foot on the floor and just do it. Rumi would urge us, don't go back to bed. Don't go back to bed. That in the hours between um, 3 and 6, the Seth material, Jane Roberts would say, we all receive a wake-up call from God. Of course, we hit that snooze button. We tell God we'll get back to him probably around 8, maybe 9 o'clock. We've had a stressful day. The funny thing is, I have difficulty sleeping myself. But if I get out of bed, no matter how I feel, I've increased my odds of having a better night's sleep coming up, especially if I do the things that I do, the practices that I have that help prepare me for bed. An odd thing to think about. One of the first things that occurs to me as I get out of bed is doing the things that are going to help me sleep at night. But that's how we do it. That's how you're successful, I guess, in any endeavor. I am not the most successful person, depending on how you measure success. But in my own world, in my own happy little reality, right now I have every single thing that makes me happy. That's not too bad. That's not a bad success ratio when you think about it. So I've been going live now for 1 or 2 weeks. Pretty happy with some of the conversations I get to have with my friends. pretty happy with the conversations that I have with myself quite a bit. If I do say so myself, I'm quite happy with my own conversational skills when there's only me. Um, so what I normally do is I come here and I talk shit for a couple minutes, see if anyone shows up uh, before I read from my blog. Yesterday, I never made it to my blog because I had a fantastic conversation about training, about health, about diet, about spirituality, about Zen, about Toltec traditions, about everything with my friends Barefoot Burpees, and Osiris. A couple other people popped in. Always fun. Always fun to, um, as I mentioned quite frequently, have that dialogue, conversation coming from every place, every bit, every aspect of the universe, of spirit, of doesn't matter what we call it, but allowing the world to speak to us. And not just that. Remember, it's a dialogue. We're talking back. We're in dialogue with everything. Every aspect of the universe we're in dialogue with because we are created by the very elements existing at that moment of the Big Bang. We are, as Carl Sagan said, we are made of stardust and then made famous through uh, Joni Mitchell and Judy Collins and Crosby, Stills and Nash. We are golden, we are stardust. Literally, which is just fascinating when you think of the cosmology of who and what we are. So let's get to the blog. And this morning, this was a big theme of mine, and I explained that here actually. Morning, as I was talking about before, routine, doing things, first thing when you get up, and the earlier the better. And I was talking about that. These hours, it's the name of my blog post for the day. These hours, it's one of the important themes here, writing about it so often as to make it seem the reason for my blog. And yet the joy I find in waking early, exploring my sense of presence through the deep silence offered through these hours. My writing still seems understated in description, never quite capturing how profound these moments truly are. But still I try, often. Hopeful to write just a few inspired lines that might do justice to this time. Everything is tinged with mystery now, hushed, reduced to softness existing only before dawn. No other hours bring the same sense of magic, primordial, invoking an ancient presence belonging to the inner landscape of the soul. Not an individual soul, but collective, our essence brought to surface through the thin hours found between the world of dreams and our most ordinary state of reality. This is my time of meditation, of sun salutation, writing, invoking magic. And my day follows from this point on, a presence of joy never far from surface, available to more difficult moments that may arrive in later times. These are the hours that stay with me, as it seems that once magic is invoked, there is no return to a mundane reality. Everything remains bathed in the softness of its recognition, thin hours throughout the day, and at any moment a veil may fall and reveal the world as mystery. These moments inspire me, calling me to awaken, as if my presence that's invoked, that I'm a quality of mystery, known only through these hours. So that ties in actually with what we began talking about, that the morning is just full of that mystery. You only know it when you're there, when you're experiencing it. I mentioned thin hours, and that's sort of a play on the thin places found in Celtic literature, Celtic folklore, that There's certain places that are worn thin by their very holiness, that of passing between mundane reality and sacred reality, of holy reality, um, and that there can be such a thing as thin hours, that those hours between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock are worn thin by the presence of dreams, by the presence of holiness, by the presence of God's whisper. Um, and again, it's that voice that Rumi talks about, that there are secrets being whispered by the breeze in those hours. Do not go back to sleep. That's how we invoke magic. Um, I think it might have been the mystic Thomas Troward who said, and I could be wrong, that if we wake up between 3 and 6 and simply ask for what we wish for, that's it. The magic, the secret, the magic of manifesting. Wake up early and ask for what you want. Put your desire out there. Go back to sleep then, but put both feet on the floor. Face the day. Have the courage to get out of bed when maybe the last thing you want to do is get out of bed. And then have the courage to ask for what you really want. See what happens. Worst can happen, you don't get what you want and you lose 20 minutes of sleep. Best thing that can happen, you get exactly what you wish for. I would add one more secret of manifestation in there, and that would be detached from the outcome. If you're worried about the outcome, then you're entering that seed of doubt. It's not going to come true. If you are attached to the outcome, how it's going to play out, how specifically are you going to get what you want, then you're interfering with inspiration itself, and it doesn't happen. I've heard teachers liken it to planting a tomato seed and waiting a day or two for the plants to arrive, for tomatoes to arrive, and not seeing them. You dig up the plant to check, to make sure everything's okay. And then you put the dirt back over it. You've disturbed the seed. It's not going to happen now. That's what we do with our dreams. We worry them to death. We literally, that we plant that seed of manifestation, that seed of desire to get what we want. And then we worry, are we going to get it? Are we not going to get it? Is it going to be the way we want it? Is it going to get here on time? And of course it doesn't. Do I believe in manifestation? Yes, maybe not in the same way as described in The Secret. I think through meditation, it becomes a natural process, that what we put our attention on, especially right when we enter that gap, all important topic that I talk about here every day, probably since I've started talking, is that space between thought, space between words, that holiness found that allows everything to be. Space between something is just the appearance of the all accompanying, all ever present, I guess is a better way of saying it, since I was having a hard time getting the other way out of my mouth. All encompassing spaciousness, capacity of what we are. Thoughts appear in that. Words appear within that. Concepts, stories, beliefs, everything appears within that. And yet, the presence itself, that silent presence, that spaciousness, remains unencumbered, untouched by all that mental chatter going around. That's our reality. We don't have to do anything to be there. That's a remarkable thing. And that's the process that I teach in primordial sound meditation. It's the same process in transcendental meditation and any other mantra-based, Vedic-based meditation. It is the space itself that's doing the work. We just remember the mantra. we go back to it, we go back to it, we go back to it, gently, easily, no pressure, and we sink into that calm, the silence of who and what we presently and always are. That's the whole thing with Douglas Harding pointing in this direction. Finding the observer, finding the absence of the observer. We can't say emptiness is the observer because it's empty. And yet, all we can find is emptiness, and all there is observation. Let's be comfortable with paradox. It doesn't have to be the way we want it to be. It doesn't have to be the way we understand it to be. It doesn't have to be the story that we tell. This is the way things are because I read it in a book. This is the way things are because my teachers told me. This is the way things are because my parents and the news and the media and the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita and whatever tells me. It doesn't have to be that way. But it might be. Who knows? Be open to the paradox. Be open to allow things to be as they presently are because they can't be any other way. Right now, can't be any different than it is. And yet, it will be quite different. How's that for paradox? Hey, how are you, Mocha? I'm talking about stuff, all kinds of stuff. Specifically, I'm talking about early morning stuff, getting out of bed and doing the stuff that makes us or reveals us as the inspired creative essence of which we are, but we don't remember. I'm not talking about things, I'm talking about stuff. And my blog post and what I wrote this morning and seeing what comes up. It actually sort of moved into meditation and manifestation, how many mystics have said, and the earth does say hello first thing in the morning. And we hear it, bird songs. We hear it through the landscape itself if we're capable of listening closely enough. That scientists have actually discovered there is a deep hum to the universe. It only took science 3,000 years to catch up with the Vedic masters who heard that great hum and added it to their mantras. Om Namah Shivaya. Om, sound of the universe. And yet, knowing that, why did it take science so long? Because science believes what they believe, and there's no room for anything else until something else has been proven. But of course, they have to operate on that little bit of doubt that maybe this isn't quite so, maybe something is otherwise. I'm not knocking science in the least. I write about science all the time. My father was a science teacher. I have a deep, deep love for science. No, the universe hums because the universe hums. And we supply the dialogue. We supply the words. The Om is the music, and we provide the lyrics. So that's a big responsibility. What kind of lyrics are we going to write? Doesn't seem like we've overall have written some very loving lyrics to the great song of the universe. We can do better. Hopefully we will. Not saying that they haven't been. Hey, the Beatles did their part. Now we all got to step up. We need to do better. We need to be better. It does occur to me when I read the questions and the other stuff in the boxes, it doesn't show up when somebody watches this live. So they see me having this conversation, going back and forth and saying all kinds of weird things and not knowing where it's coming from. So I should assure anyone who watches this later that my conversations are just as weird no matter uh, who shows up to point me in that direction. They just take a specifically weird direction when certain people pop up. Not saying that Mocha McCarty is one of those certain people. I'm not saying that she isn't one of those certain people. But you may have noticed the conversation got weirder when she popped up. I don't know. Um, and weirder and weirder. Um, the universe is the frequency. I agree. And we, the Vedic sages heard it. The Buddha heard it. Um, Tibetan masters heard it and still hear it. I think even Christian mystics heard it. Gregorian chants, any kind of chanting. I talked about meditation. If you don't want to meditate, if you don't want to pray, if you don't want to do Qigong, chant. Wake up in the morning and find a word that is sacred to you. I prefer, as Mocha mentioned there, a frequency, because words have connotations and we become lost in the stories of those connotations, even lovely words. You don't want to meditate on the word hope, because then you start thinking of all the different connotations of hope and you're not meditating, you're thinking. If you meditate on a frequency, on a mantra that has no meaning but is used for the vibrational quality, then you're getting somewhere. And Mocha puts I am, which is the very essence of the universe, the very essence of everything. From primordial nothingness comes I am. From I am, everything is manifested. That's how you manifest. I am, and something follows. I am the light. I am that I am, as we mentioned before a couple days ago. Everything comes from I am. But before I am is that divine nothingness, the primordial ooze from which we wormed the way out of somehow and have been seeking to make our way back to ever since. The funny thing is, we are never absent from it. We are never absent from nothing. I very, very frequently talk about the Heart Sutra, probably chanted more frequently by humans around the world than any other sutra, more so than even any psalm, more so than any Christian prayer. Just Buddhists around the world begin their day chanting the Heart Sutra. One of the key phrases in the Heart Sutra is emptiness is form, form is emptiness. Often sort of taken that emptiness becomes form and that form becomes emptiness. Not so. I'll say it again. Emptiness is form. Is, that's the key word. Form is emptiness. It's the same thing. The universe comes from emptiness. The universe is empty. The universe has form. Form is emptiness. So, nothing's left out. So, that's sort of the essence of what I wrote about this morning. Talking about mystery, talking about magic. I'm a firm believer in magic because, think about it. Think about the Heart Sutra. Everything's coming from nothing. How much more magical can that get? From nothingness, we have an entire existence. From a singularity of no mystery, but Misty, the dog, is part of the great mystery. And she has manifested for the sheer joy of mistiness, for the sheer joy of being misty. And you are be hard pressed to find a more joyful dog than Misty. You might find some as equally joyful, but you'd be hard pressed to find one more so. I've had a lot of happy dogs, um, but Misty is extremely happy. She's a dog of welcoming presence. Other dogs are drawn to her, other people are drawn to her. Um, you don't find that often. You find that very, very rarely in the people world, but you do find it. There are some people um, who are like that. She can hear me say Misty. If I were to clap my hands and say, "Here, Misty," then people would definitely think I'm weird, whoever's watching this. Um, but it might be worth it if she jumps towards the camera. Of course, she suspects that she's going to get a treat, and that changes everything. So, magic, big believer in it. We see it. We see it through science. Why we believe science denies magic? Is anything more magical than Jonas Salk discovering the means of ending polio? I believe it was polio. Is there anything more magical than splitting an atom? It's led to some destruction, but it's also led to some great, great things as well. And whose fault is it that it led to destruction? It didn't have to. We took it in that. No, I blame Canadians for nothing. Splitting an atom, magical. What we once thought of as indivisible, the substance that formed the substance of the world, and yet we split it, and we discovered a whole nother infinite world, infinite going in both directions. Sometimes we think of infinite as cosmology, the stars, of going further and further and further, a never-ending universe, and yet the infinite is in this direction as well. That's the essence, again, of Douglas Harding, urging you to point, look for the seer. You're not going to find the seer. You are going to find the absence of a seer. And yet within that absence, there is seeing. Canadians are magical. Some of them. Some of them are just Canadians. But speaking of Canadians, speaking of magic, was there anyone more magical than John Candy? Perhaps the greatest. Well, here's another thing. Schitt's Creek. To me, a truly magical show. You got to get through the first couple episodes. You got to watch the whole thing. It is a character study of growth, of how these people evolve into happier, warmer, more loving, more present. Not perfect, but better. It's the same with The Bear, season 2. Although the last episode there was some deep regression, which caused me a little bit of a pause. I don't want to give away any spoiler to any show, other than I am very drawn now towards shows where I see the development of characters in a more human, caring, warmer direction, other than just for the sake of a laugh, or just for the sake of seeing how low you can sink a character. Very few shows like that. I have a friend who has been recommending Barry, and I watched the first season, but then it became to me similar to Breaking Bad, where there was the de-evolution of a character. Well, Mocha says that, well, that's sad about The Bear. And yes, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but the arc of the characters growing so deeply and so profoundly is worth that slight regression in the last episode, because life isn't always even keeled. Things go up, things go down. It's how we respond. Respond's always a key word for me versus react. I spent a lifetime of reacting. We all do. Nothing the matter with reacting. Instinctive, we need it. Survival trait. It is part of the um, sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, and the other F. Um, I'll leave that to your own discretion. The but response, more thoughtful. The key is knowing that reactions take place and knowing when we should be responsive. The Breaking Bad and the Tidy Whiteys didn't bother me. It was seeing the character arc and knowing beforehand where it was going to go. Hearing people talk about it, hearing reviews, and knowing that he's someone starts out as a basically decent guy and he ends up revealing himself to be not so decent. For me, we could say yes, that happens. That's part of life. I'm not so sure. I think that we are a pearl in the making. We're a hunk of carbon. And life has us in its grip, revealing the fact that in essence we're a diamond, that we get there through the pressure. It might have been Kierkegaard that it's those things that reveal a person. That what's the direct quote? I should make use of Google when a quote occurs to me, so I get and I have it right here, and that way I get the proper quote instead of knowing the essence and just putting it out there. But basically, and I think it was Kierkegaard, but I could be very wrong. That circumstances don't make a man. We often think that they do. Circumstances will make the man. It was the circumstances of whatever situation that made my father or made me or made my grandfather or whatever. But again, as Kierkegaard said, that circumstances reveal the man. They don't make the man. It goes back to what I said a few days ago about Michelangelo being that's true. People confuse the story arc of a TV show with how they think reality actually plays out. Maybe a slightly altered view of reality, but reality nonetheless. Referring to Michelangelo and David, when he was asked how he managed to carve David out of a single block of marble, and he said, David was always within the stone. He took away everything that was not David and just revealed him. That's the process of life. Life reveals the fact that we're life. Life reveals our humanity. Life reveals our essence. Life reveals our divinity, our holiness. But it takes a while to get there. And in the meantime, we're shedding some pretty awful layers of not so nice stuff, not so pleasant stuff. But give it time. Do the stuff that helps. Do the stuff that works. Sit down and meditate. Spend time with some quality friends who are on the same path. Spend time in nature. Nature will do more than anything else. Just spending time, breathing in nature, walking in nature, opening to nature, listening to nature. Then you'll be revealed. And what you'll find is that you are not separate from what you're hearing. You are not separate from what you're seeing. You're not separate from what you're experiencing. That you are this, the suchness of life. Buddhist term, suchness. It's a beautiful term. One of my favorite that I put out there quite often. So let's see. We've covered Canadians, John Candy, Schitt's Creek, Breaking Bad, The Bear, Barry. Thing about Barry, hilarious show, very funny show, but very dark, and it just became too dark for me. I don't want to invest my time in darkness. If I'm watching something on TV, I don't shy away from darkness. I don't think you can, even if you want to. I definitely couldn't as a caregiver for my father. I was placed in the midst, in the thick of darkness. I watched the person that I cared more for, perhaps than any other person. There's people that I care equally for. No one I ever cared more for. And I was put in that situation where he was dying in my presence, and I couldn't change a damn thing. I did try. However, I could make him more comfortable. I could be there for him. I could be a listening presence, a healing presence. I could just be a presence. I had his hand as he died. I listened to him as he died. Again, I couldn't do anything to change that situation except be there. In the end, it doesn't come down to changing a situation, because the situation is going to change regardless of what we do. We can just be open to it. Now, we can maybe add an intention to see what's gonna flow from that intention, what that next moment's going to be. But once it's here, and it's always here, Mocha says you are not just a son, a caregiver, but also his friend. Yes, and I certainly tried to be all three in the best way that I was capable of at the time. Not thinking that I was going to be a very good caregiver. I just did what I could do, which in the end is all we can do. Do what we can, given where we are. We like to think that we have a bigger impact than we do. But the thing is, we are the impact. We are the change. We are the motion. We are what's occurring. And all we can do is allow. And again, we plant that seed. And then we have that moment flow. Or we can't see. When I said flow, I did a hand gesture. We can only flow. That's it. Life is motion. We are life. There is no separation. The essence of every great spiritual teaching is no separation. There's just what's happening. And we are part of that. We are that web of weird, W-Y-R-D. And it is forever, hand gestures again, forever out there, onwards, infinite, moving. All right, guys. So I have to say, talking about being a caregiver for my father, over a year, fast approaching 2 years, is still somewhat of an overwhelming experience for me. I got emotional and teary-eyed, just a brief reference to him. Yes, I was doing gas hands. So it actually sort of, I don't want to say brought me down, but it has maybe emotionally um, some heaviness that I sort of feel uh, the best thing to do is to step away for a bit, do some breathing. I'm going to meditate in a little bit. I've done my yoga, second round of yoga. I do 2 rounds of yoga every day without fail, sometimes 3. Um, I do some light qigong exercises through the day. I meditate twice a day, sometimes 3 times. Um, and right now will be my time of second meditation session for the day. And I will let what is, as Moko said, it opened you up. And I agree. So I will let that sit, see what unfolds from there. Maybe um, it'll lead to something that I write about later. Whatever, it is exactly what's occurring now. And the only thing we can do is sit with it, be with it, open to it. With that, guys, I'm going to let everyone go. Um, thank you for popping up. Thank you for the dialogue, Mocha. I appreciate it. Again, it has a tendency, tell her I said hi too, please. Um, things like that, the interaction have a tendency to steer me in um, places that um, inspire and help my own uh, creative thinking. And I hope at the very least that when I have these conversations, anyone who might listen will have similar results. Nothing I say is offered as any sort of particular truth, spiritual or otherwise, training or otherwise, dietary or otherwise. What is I talk about things that are interests in my life, things that are present in my life, things that simply are, and I put it out there, and I see what happens. And what happened today was an interesting conversation. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys. I'm going to say goodbye, and I will be back tomorrow for morning burpees and later for an afternoon talk. I also have a meditation client, an older meditation client who I taught um, a year ago, who is actually sort of updating her practice a bit in need of a boost. So I will provide that tomorrow. So I will see you then. Take care, guys.